Legacy of Phrecia is a new Path of Exile 1 event that GGG found tucked away deep in the depths of their PoE2 funded sofas that completely replaces the 19 original Ascendancies with a full set of 19 brand new ones. Today, as dictated by the Wheels of Fate, and Architect of Chaos, let's go. Vaal Domination. What is that? I'm gonna be playing Vaal Domination as the Architect of Chaos. This is Build Roulette Episode 2, let's get started. Now, the first thing I needed to know about Vaal Domination is that it is the Vaal version of Dominating Blow, an incredibly underappreciated skill that summons a small army of sentinels to fight alongside you as you kill things yourself in melee range. Yeah, that's gonna suck. Maybe that's why it flies under the radar. In any case, before I can even get the regular version of Dominating Blow, I needed to make it to level 28. So I created my pantsless Templar and began working my way through the early campaign. I started off by using Summon Raging Spirits and quickly moved on to Absolution once that became available to me at level 12. I had never even equipped the Absolution skill gem before, so I didn't really know how this skill worked. And do you know what? It's pretty freaking great. You summon beams of light from the sky to obliterate monsters, and when they meet their untimely fate, a couple spellcaster minions are raised to replace them, who conveniently can also summon beams of light from the sky. I totally get why people like Absolution so much now. Regardless, Absolution is not the skill that I'm going to be playing, it's just a means to an end for now. I slowly made my way through Acts 1 and 2, and frankly, not a whole lot happened, apart from an early Chaos Orb drop and a nice pair of move speed boots I found. At level 16, I picked up Herald of Purity from the quest reward, seeing as it's very on theme with this Dominating Blow build, but until I actually have Dominating Blow, it was mostly just there for aesthetics. As far as bandits go, I'm a firm believer in helping Creighton now for that extra 8% movement speed, it just feels nice. I finished up Act 2, found another Chaos Orb, and finally, midway through Act 3, Dominating Blow was available. In case you don't know, Dominating Blow is a melee attack that applies a 1 second long debuff on the enemies where if they die while they have that debuff on them, they get converted into a little sentinel who fights for you. The new sentinels also keep the modifiers that they had if they were magic or rare enemies, and there is a cap on how big your army can be, with 9 white guys, 3 members of the blue man group, and 1 single rare. Also, if you hit a boss monster, there's a chance that you'll summon one of the white guys, otherwise fighting bosses would be completely impossible. Now, of course, I wanted the Vaal version, so I tried using a Vaal orb on it and it didn't hit. Also, I forgot to hit record, but whatever. So then I went and bought one from somebody else for 1 chaos. With Vaal Domination finally on my skill bar, I pushed on through Act 3 and faced off with Dominus. I hadn't actually used the Vaal version of the skill before, and I was pleasantly surprised with what it does. Basically, it turns up to 3 of your little dudes into 3 big ass dudes, and let me tell you, they never got old. I took Dominus down, and at this point, this is what my skill tree looked like. You might be wondering, how do you balance investing into your minions versus yourself, since you do need to be able to do damage to even get your little army of minions rolling, right? Well, thankfully, there's this handy little node called Spiritual Aid that makes it so that any increases to minion damage also apply to you. There, problem solved. At this point, a friend of mine was making his own way through the start of Act 3, and I offered to give him a hand, at which point I discovered the absolute joy that is using Vaal Domination on rare sentinels with funny modifiers, so that you end up with sentinels like this one. We went and did the lab together, and for my first ascendancy, I went for Fever for Corruption. This makes it so that my giant dudes last longer, and I can use the skill more often, basically resulting with nearly permanent uptime if I manage my souls properly. One of the downsides of this skill, as I quickly learned, is that it's really hard to target specific sentinels I want to refresh, so pretty often I'd realize that I'm missing a big guy or two and have to respawn them. Not the worst thing in the world, but it did get a little annoying. If you're wondering why I didn't go for Depose Order instead for that juicy 286% crit chance, it's because it's literally worthless. It would increase my crit chance, but not my minions', so like, what's the point? Also, quick side note, if you're gonna play this yourself, do yourself a favor and grab Resolute Technique early on so that your attacks can actually hit the enemies. I waited way too long to grab this, and the build instantly felt better when I did at like level 77. Not my strongest moment. Act 4 was boring. Nothing happened. But in Act 5, I made a small discovery. My big dudes are actually just replicas of the big guys that Innocence brings to life. Now I feel like a phony. Also, this ghosted Innocence just totally f***ed us up. We pushed on, took down Kitava, and I started making my way solo through Act 6. At this point, my skill tree looked something like this. Nothing special really, just getting lots of life and minion nodes. I've gotta say, the build really was coming together though, like the damage was definitely there. Survivability on the other hand? Yeah. To be fair, I did have negative fire res here, so, you know, I was basically begging for this to happen, but still. I did a Vaal side area, and the vessel conveniently dropped Vaal haste, which is something I was looking for. I took care of the Brine King, and I figured, what the hell? Let me buy an upgrade in the form of Chober Chaber. No, I am not joking. I unironically used Chober Chaber for like 30 levels. It gives plus levels to both melee and minion skills, and guess what? Dominating Blow is both of those. Not to mention the skill effect duration making the sentinels last longer, and the base damage actually being way higher than the piece of garbage sword I had equipped. What's not to love? Right after that, I entered another Vaal side area called the Flooded Complex, and like, this was the absolute biggest side area I have ever seen. I mean, I'm talking Path of Exile 2 big. My minions then destroyed Arakali, and I went and did the second lab and put points into Chaos Reigns, which just gives my Dominating Blow +3 to levels. Which, yeah, by the way, I probably should have mentioned that my minions absolutely scale with levels, so getting plus levels is incredibly important. I went through Acts 8 and 9 and made sure to find this sneaky little trigger craft unlock, which, in case you don't know, used to be a veiled modifier that you would unlock by doing Jun missions, but no, now it's over here hidden in the refinery in Act 9. While I was making my way to the boss of Act 9, I happened upon a Soul Eater enemy that I then converted into a Sentinel and buffed up with my Vaal skill to ultimately end up with this incredibly huge and really quick for his size Sentinel, which just looked funny to me. In fact, that's probably one of the most satisfying things about playing this build. I would purposefully look for enemies with Soul Eater to convert before turning my Sentinels into big guys so that they would inherit the Soul Eater as well. I finished Act 9, did the Merc Lab where I grabbed Forbidden Secrets, which grants Everlasting Sacrifice and Shepherd of Souls. What are those? Well, Everlasting Sacrifice is kind of interesting. It makes it so that whenever you reach your maximum energy shield, it goes back down to 0, and you get a short buff that gives you +5 to max all res, making you tankier for a little bit. This kind of came into play, but not as often as I would have liked. Shepherd of Souls, on the other hand, is kind of wonky. It makes your Vaal skills cost way less souls, with the caveat that the cost doubles for every use within an 8-second window. In practice, I don't think this really changed much for my gameplay here, since I could just spam my skill 3 times in a row and the minions would last long enough that I'd have full souls to do it again by the time they'd eventually run out. With that done, I went for my rematch with Kitava, and down she went. Now the game really starts. First things first, I needed to sort out my resistances, so I bought a new body armor with life and resistances. I picked up these Inextricable Fate boots, which ultimately kind of sucked, but I wanted that 30% move speed, and I thought that enemies would start getting poisoned from my minions, but in practice I don't really think that worked the way I thought it would. In any case, this is what my skill tree looked like after the campaign. I really should have had Resolute Technique by now, but I'm stupid. I also picked up a belt with basic life and resistances from another player for a Chaos Orb, and my endgame journey through the Atlas began. I got a few levels, did a bunch of maps, found some idols, and opened up the Kirax Vault, which I find is such a weird thing. Like, I feel like this shouldn't exist. I got lucky and got 20 Maven's Chisels of Proliferation, which I was able to sell on the currency exchange for an easy 40 chaos, without earning them or anything. I don't know, maybe that's just me, you let me know what you think. I also sold the Forbidden Tome that had dropped for a quick 25C, and I used my newfound funds to afford a +1 minion helmet with life, dex, and a lot of lightning res for 30 chaos. Money well spent. Also, finally, I pathed over to Resolute Technique. It's about freaking time. As far as mapping strategies go, at the start I really just had to go with the flow. I was doing a lot of Ritual, some Breach, plenty of Delirium, and a fair amount of Abyss, which ultimately is what I mostly invested into, because I was having fun doing it. You know, that being said, half of the currency I made is probably just from little 5 chaos trades I was doing, selling off all of the random idols I kept finding. They sold like crazy. Next, I bought a suboptimal 9 passive minion cluster jewel that I slotted in over here, and another Chober Chaber, but this time a 5-link. If you're wondering which supports I was using, it was something like this: Vaal Domination, Multi-Strike, Melee Fizz Damage, Brutality, and Ancestral Call. Eventually I put minion damage in there too. I probably should have swapped Ancestral Call for Melee Splash, but I was kinda lazy and just preferred the way Ancestral Call felt when dealing with the first pack of monsters in a map where I don't have my minions with me. And you know what? Now's a good time to mention that, yeah, that first pack can be a little bit rough. I don't have a solution for this. I mean, maybe a writhing jar, but I never bothered. It's definitely one of the weaknesses of the build, and leaving your map to do a trade was all the more annoying because it meant having to start my minion army over from scratch again. Anyways, I kept leveling, did a blighted map, because why the hell not, and bought a 20 quality version of Vaal Domination. But I had to level it up before I could swap to it, which took like what felt like years, but I did eventually swap. I got some new boots and slammed that extra 5% move speed on there. You love to see it. Sold an amulet I found with a ton of resist for 25C and bought a new ring with lots of life and resistances, and then I died. At this point, I was getting kinda sick of dying so much. I had nearly 6,000 life, maximum resistances, including almost full chaos res, but hardly any physical damage mitigation whatsoever. It was time to focus on defense. I switched out haste, which I had been using since a long time ago, for determination, and bought a new 6-link armor, swapped out of Chober Chaber finally for a claw and shield, of which I crafted the claw myself using minion essences. This is where that trigger craft I unlocked earlier comes into play, since I could now put Desecrate, Flesh Offering, and Vulnerability on there so that those would automatically go off on their own. A real nice quality of life improvement. As for why a claw, I don't know, man. Built-in life gain on hit, I guess. The shield was for block though. I could now focus on getting that block chance up there so that I would hopefully die a whole lot less. I did the Uber Lab, took down Izaro easy peasy, and chose Impure Blood as the final Ascendancy node so that I would never have to worry about mana again and I could reserve it completely with auras. I did my first Maven invitation, kept leveling up to 85 now, and decided to go do Adziri since I'm a big fan and I wanted to see how this build would handle the fact that all of the basic monsters in there are blue, so I can't have my full army before going into the boss rooms since there are no white monsters to convert. And yeah, that kind of sucked, so I just ran straight to the boss rooms, which truly stood no chance against my army. Adziri didn't drop anything good either, so it was kind of a waste of time. Then, while farming some Abyss, I got my first and only Exalted Orb drop. Of course, I wish it was a Divine, but you'll take what you get, right? And then I got freaking one-shot. Over and over. I was not ailment immune. I played a bit more carefully, leveled up, and sold an Abyss Jewel that I picked up for an entire Divine Orb. This was my first Divine of the character. I was stoked. Using this newfound wealth, I bought a replica Dragonfang with +3 to Dominating Blow on there, my endgame amulet. This was a very welcome upgrade. I did an Alpha Temple that I had slowly put together and came out with this pair of unique boots called the Dance of the Offered. Now for the life of me, I cannot find the clip where I sold this, but I'm telling you I sold it for at least 80 chaos. You'll just have to take my word on it. I kept leveling, bought some Instilling Orbs to automate my flasks finally, sold another Forbidden Tome, and entered a Poor Joy's Asylum where I got a ton of experience. I mean like 2/3 of an entire level. I did some more Abyss farming and pushed through the map tiers into T15s and whatnot, and eventually I got the Writhing Invitation to drop. Before taking him on, I did want to get my next level since I pretty much despise that fight and I think the pool phase is complete BS. So I got to level 90 and happened upon my first Abyssal Depths at the exact same time. I faced off with Amanamu and I died. Came back and finished him off and he dropped nothing special, just a basic Darkness Enthroned that sold for like 20 chaos. Next I got a synth map and the Polaric Invitation from the boss of that same map I was in, and now it was time to go take down the Infinite Hunger. It was actually incredibly easy. Like, I don't even know why I was worried. I didn't even go into the pool phase. What a freaking joke. Then came the Black Star, and well, she also fell over. I didn't even have to move. I was feeling pretty good with the build at this point, but I could be even stronger, so I bought the Fortress Covenant Jewel. Essentially, this gives my minions more damage and makes them tankier, plus the downside doesn't apply since we can socket it over in our Cluster Jewel, which negates radius-based effects. I didn't know that until now. Very cool. I did the synth map, fought the boss, and yeah, no, this was freaking impossible, dude. I tried twice, but I did not want to lose 60% of my next level, so I gave up after 2 deaths in a row. I kept mapping, just trying to get to the Eater and Exarch fights, and happened upon another Abyss boss. This time he dropped an Ulamon's Gaze, and a Darkness Enthroned, which of course I identified, and well, yeah. Here I got absolutely one-shot by a Vaal Slam, which I should have avoided, but you know what? My fat-ass Sentinels make it really hard to see sometimes, and I blame them. Anyhow, I got to level 91, sold the Ulamon's Gaze for 44 chaos, and then decided I should probably change my belt So I bought some essences and spammed the Stygian vials that I had laying around and ended up with this, a slight upgrade. I fought the Chimera mostly for fun as well as the Purifier, and neither of them dropped anything great. After many hours of grind, the Screaming Invitation finally showed itself, and it was time to go head to head with the Eater of Worlds. As strong as this build is, I don't think that it really shines as a bosser, since there's a pretty long ramp-up time before my army is big enough to do significant damage. Either way, the Eater of Worlds did go down, and he dropped the Forbidden Flesh. This thing is worth about 5 to 6 divines unidentified as is, but of course I tried identifying it in hopes of getting something even better. So I got pretty lucky and got a Forbidden Flesh jewel off my first quest Eater of Worlds boss fight, which is a really nice drop because this by itself, if I don't identify it, it is worth 4, 5, 6 divines-ish, something in that range, right? Probably 4 or 5 would sell it immediately. It's probably more like 6 or 7. However, if we identify it, it could be worth anywhere between like 50 chaos and, I don't know, 80 divines or something like that, depending on what we hit. So we're gonna identify this. My luck so far has not been the greatest, so it's really nice that I got one of these in the first place. I haven't even gotten a single divine orb drop, which is kind of crazy, but here we are. Okay, let's do this. Let's identify it. Pray. Nature's Boon. Oh, is that good? It's not good. The disappointment was somewhat sweetened by the fact that I then sold another Abyss Jewel for a hefty 95 Chaos, which went to good use as I bought a Quickening Covenant Jewel to make my minions faster. At this point, I was really struggling to get a tier 16 map to drop so that I could run it and could drop the Exarch invitation so that I could go beat him up, and after like an hour or two of running the highest tier maps I had, I finally got another tier 16 map, and in it I got to level 92, ran into the Nameless Seer, who offered nothing of note, and got the Incandescent Invitation. Before fighting the Exarch though, I made a point of anointing my amulet finally with Ravenous Horde, as if that would make a freaking difference for the fight. I don't know what I was thinking, man. I think at that point my brain was just completely fried. Now the only thing left for me to do was take on the Searing Exarch. And so I did. Man, I so desperately wanted to get through him without dying this time, and I actually did survive the first ball phase, but god damn it, one little misstep in the second one and my dream for a clean Searing Exarch fight was over. Anyways, I beat him, and yeah, this is what my skill tree looked like. These are my defense stats. You can look at the path of building if you want. I'll have a link in the description as usual. And yeah, that's Vaal Domination for you. A pretty fun build that I would personally rate a both my eyes and ears are bleeding out of 10. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and let me know in the comments if you are a fan of the Golden Handjob quest. That way I will know if you made it to the end of the video. Peace. I faced off with Amanamu. I faced off with Amanamu. God damn it.